Wow, it is very good to be here, you guys. I want to talk to you about a very, important idea, which is namely that this entire setup, this two-day conference, your attendance here, the work that you've seen the speakers present, is worthless. Dumb, to be blunt. I want to be clear, by the way, I'm not just some random asshole. I'm a very carefully chosen asshole. I happen to be both mean and a scientist. I'm an inorganic chemist, which is another way of saying I'm going to die of a kind of cancer that hasn't been invented yet. Very carefully watching David's talk with an eye to the future, my future. Yeah, I make toxic waste for a living and, do this too sometimes. But I wanted to talk to you guys because I feel a kinship. I feel an opportunity here to talk as a nerd to my fellow nerds. Because I think we need to get something very clear right now, and that is that nerds are idiots. People think nerds are smart. No. A nerd is an idiot who has memorized a lot of facts. I can see some of you instinctively are on board with that idea. It's true. A nerd is someone who is very smart in some very narrow focused capacity. They do well in school, whatever. No ability to function in real life. I'll give you an example from my own experience. I'm a chemist. I could tell you right now, very carefully in a very technical definition, what the octane rating means on gasoline. At the pump, I actually know what that number means. I've been wearing these shoes for 72 hours straight because I double knotted them by accident. Okay? We're idiots, and we need to understand that. I've had some very interesting idiots come and spend some time in front of us today. We had, who did we have? God, we saw a talk from, Abigail Dixon, works with children, putting on Shakespeare plays, renditions of Shakespeare that are organized, directed, and starred in exclusively by children and teenagers, which I think is great because now we can finally see Romeo and Juliet as the 13-year-olds they're supposed to be. And we had a talk from he was a roboticist. He built humanoid robots, and what was his name? It'd be embarrassing if I forgot someone whose first name is the same as my own. Matt Carney, everyone. We saw Matt Carney give a talk on robotics. He's someone who's built literal humanoid robotics. He's built implantable medical devices. He's actually voted by his high school class most likely to turn himself into Iron Man in 10 years. And I think Matt's a great representation of what I mean when I say nerds are idiots. I mean, here's someone with dreams of sending self-replicating, self-organizing robots literally into the stars, despite not being able to get his own PowerPoint GIFs to animate properly. This is a man in front of you today who loves science fiction so deeply that he concluded his talk by quoting the famous line from Star Trek, boldly go, etc. But he still uses the phrase legions of robots like that won't make us all run screaming from the room. We're idiots. We had him, we had Abigail Dixon, we had Dr. Pratik Shah. Dr. Shah took that axiom, if you're nervous in front of a crowd, envision them in their underwear. Dr. Shah is an innovator. He took that a step further, and he asked the audience to envision themselves as liquid feces. He's a microbiologist who invited us all to picture ourselves as a sick person's diarrhea to open his talk. That's cutting-edge presentation right there. That's really good stuff. Dr. Shah is, obviously an incredible man. He's done incredible work. He is deeply involved with high-tech water treatment throughout Africa. He helped develop an entirely new vaccine for pneumonia and related disorders. And in a couple weeks, he's actually going to be facing his greatest scientific challenge yet. As a microbiologist, he's going to have to spend Thanksgiving dinner with his family explaining why we're not all going to die from Ebola. Godspeed, Dr. Shah. I wish you the best of luck. We also, this morning, we had a talk from Chester Lian. Chester is what's known within the small introverted community as a speed cuber, which is someone who solves Rubik's Cubes really fast. Yeah, he's way cooler than you. Chester, I mean, I sort of feel bad, actually, because like here at TED, we're interdisciplinary, we shift paradigms, and we cross boundaries and all that, but it means that you get a talk from someone like Dr. Shah, who's literally trying to single-handedly cure infectious disease, and then you get Chester, who's like really good at a kid's puzzle no one likes. And that's got to be embarrassing for Dr. Shah, I mean. All right? Chester can solve that thing with his feet. Do you understand that? Come back, Shah, when you've developed a vaccine without your own hands, okay? Then I'll be impressed. Where did Mr. Pincus go? When he cures cancer and Alzheimer's with a blindfold on, then he can do a talk here, okay? Chester's making you all look like chumps. Is Chester here? Yeah, that's right. That's the main man right there. We had a talk just recently from the very productive Mr. Christopher Wren. Chris Wren, everybody, if you lack short-term memory, is a developer and software guru, I would say at this point, over at Google. They make everything you use. And Christopher, according to your bio at least, has worked on not one but three products you might have heard of. He's worked on so he worked on Google+, and he worked on Blogger, and he worked on Android, which means this is a man who's largely responsible for the second most popular social media network, the second most popular blogging platform, and the second most popular mobile operating system. Yeah, that's right. I don't know Chris. I don't know if Chris is married or not. I just know that if Chris is married, his wife is cheating on him. Chris, I hope you can take that as the joke that it is, obviously. Google Plus is like the 5th most popular operating system. We had a talk not too long ago from Dixon Dahl. Dixon, so a true fact from his bio, was named to the Forbes magazine Midas list 4 years in a row. 4 consecutive years on something called the Midas list, which I'm too poor to even know what that's about. I don't technically know what that is. I just think it's impressive that past a certain wealth level, rich people really do stop giving a shit what we think of them. They'll go ahead and call it the Midas list. For those of you who spent all day in a computer lab, Midas murdered his own daughter by turning her into gold. It's not really a subtle metaphor. They say money doesn't buy happiness. I don't know. I don't have either. I can just tell you, it definitely doesn't buy a sense of irony. Beacon Street. That's the applause break there. Right. That's a very Brookline joke. We had a talk afterwards from, oh goodness, there was Dixon. Oh, Jeremy Rubin. Speaking of money. Jeremy Rubin, on the cover of MIT's newsletter recently, he's a founder of the MIT Bitcoin project. The goal there is to give $100 in Bitcoins to every MIT student upon graduation. And I want to applaud Jeremy for his efforts in working to give MIT students yet another thing to be smug about. I really do think there are issues, though, with Bitcoin as a larger project. I mean, I'm not an expert or anything. I think it's a dangerous move to go ahead and make modern economics even more incomprehensible, just on principle, you know? I don't look forward to a future in which you cannot buy a pack of gum without a deep understanding of fiat currency and computer science. There are issues with an all-digital currency. How are we going to film rap videos? You're gonna ask naked women to lie on a pile of hard drives? I say no. I say it's inhumane. And then last but certainly not least, we heard from the multi-talented, the multifaceted Ghislaine Maxwell. It would take me quite some time to go through Miss Maxwell's list of accomplishments and talents. I'll give you guys just a few. She is the daughter of a member of British Parliament. Her resume includes work studying populations of sharks in the wild and searching for the wreckage of Amelia Earhart's disappearance. She's a helicopter pilot. She's a licensed EMT. And she pilots her own deep-sea submersible research vessels. What I'm saying is that Miss Maxwell does not always drink beer. But when she does, she's still smarter than you are. So guys, I will give you a quick story here to wrap up. I just want to sort of end things on a button to focus on this idea that all these ideas that we've heard today are dumb. I want you guys to think big. I want to get perspective here. I'm going to argue that every idea is dumb, especially this one. I'm not going to pander. I know everyone here in this room knows what trigonometry is. Everyone here at some point probably learned trigonometry and then promptly forgot it. Because trigonometry in this day and age is worthless. Even if your job ostensibly requires trigonometry, you guys have all written computer code to do it for you, okay? No one uses trigonometry anymore. It's dumb. We don't need to teach it. There was a time, however, when trigonometry was the only way to get anywhere on Earth. If you wanted to sail a boat, if you were in England and you wanted to be in not England, you had to get on a boat, you'd sail until you couldn't see land, you'd point a thingamajiggy at the star, you'd measure the angle to the star, you'd measure the angle to another star, you'd do a bunch of trigonometry, and that would tell you where you were. And that's kind of cool. It also means that pirates were better at math than you. All right? Changes your image, doesn't it? Pirates were math nerds. They had to be. Pirates were constantly like, "Dar, we set sail for pillage and plunder. Set a course for..." "2 times a cosine square root of pi. Yar!" That's why X marks the spot on a treasure map, because they can solve for it and you can't. And so let me say to you now, as trigonometry came and went, so will all of your ideas. Guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy the talks. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I had a lot of fun. If you guys weren't here yesterday, I had the honor of closing yesterday's show, and apparently you liked enough to give me the dot today. I've been upgraded to full TEDx red dot status. Feeling pretty good about that. Let's bring this thing home. Yeah, give yourselves a round of applause for being here to the end. To the very end. I do want to shout you guys out as the audience, not just for being so wonderful, staying around for all the talks, being so invested and engaged, but really for providing for me some of the best moments of TEDx Beacon Street. I mean, we have people here from Estonia and from Mexico and Japan. People wrote in their fun facts. Yeah, people traveled to be here and share details about themselves. You guys can go online, check out all the cool fun facts that you guys shared about one another. Personally, for me, I'm really glad that someone took the time to note online, on record, for us all to appreciate that they are a self-described multiple nose piercer. I just think it's awesome that intelligence comes in so many different forms here at TEDx. I think that's really cool. And I want to shout out, I don't know who it was by name. I think I would probably recognize the gentleman if I saw him. An audience member today provided with me probably the takeaway moment from TEDx Beacon Street. There was a talk going on about the importance of bringing one-on-one tutoring and personalized education sort of to the masses, replacing traditionally structured massive online courses, which are just a big hour-long lecture with no customizability, with sort of short, personalized video clips that address the needs of each student. And the presenter was harping on how important it was to keep your presentation to about 4 minutes, or else people would check out and lose interest. And at that exact moment, someone in the editing booth made the genius decision to cut to a gentleman stone cold asleep on his chest. And then back to the cheerful presenter. And if that's not what TED is about, I don't know what is. I mean, that may or may not be the biggest or most important idea you see, but that is the fastest confirmation of a thesis you will ever see at this or any other TED event. That was down to the nanosecond. And that's worth something. Some ideas don't come up. Their time doesn't come around quite so quickly. It takes a long time for some ideas to be accepted. I'll tell you guys a quick story, and then we'll sort of talk about what happened today. I assume many of you are familiar with the plight, the sort of honorary tragedy of Galileo. Galileo, if you guys are somehow unfamiliar at this audience, he said back in the 1400s that the Earth revolved around the sun. It does, by the way. That's important for the joke. He was correct. But he said that back in the 1400s, and the Catholic Church, who was not ready for that idea, was like, hey, man, you can't say that at all. Definitely no go. There's this book. It's a whole thing. And so we're going to have to lock you in your house for the rest of your life and basically ruin you and forbid anybody from ever reading your ideas. Cool, we're doing it. And then, time went on. That idea in many circles came into vogue. And then the Catholic Church actually apologized to Galileo in 1993. Yeah, 500 years. They were like, I think we got this. You got to admire the self-confidence to a certain extent, because that's not just 500 years of science and new thought and political and economic change. That's 1993. That's more than 30 years after we put someone on the moon who went, oh no, I can see it from here. Yeah, for sure. It's this one and not the other one. Sometimes your idea takes time to come around, My favorite part of that story, by the way, is that from the Catholic perspective, if you believe that the Pope has the power to condemn and then redeem a person's soul to hell for heresy, the minute that Galileo was condemned, he was doomed. He dies, his soul goes to hell. 500 years of unending, unspeakable torture for his crimes. And then in 93, when the new Pope says, oh, hey, our bad, his soul is immediately teleported to heaven, where he gets to sit by the right hand of God, and every day look down and watch the earth go around the sun. Seems like hell would have been preferable to me. But I guess now I'll just talk about just a few ideas that we saw today, whose ideas I think, whose time also hasn't come around yet. We saw, who did we hear? We heard from Rick Smolin, he's a New York Times best-selling author, and he's a photographer whose work has appeared in Time and Life and National Geographic, which all makes him the most obnoxious person to have as a friend on Facebook. We get it, Rick. Your profile picture is better than ours. No, I haven't even seen a lion. You're right. We heard from Christy Smith. Christy Smith is an amazing sort of multi-talented individual. She started off her career, her life, as a professional golfer. And then she transitioned into the world of business, and she now manages a huge consultancy firm. And I just want to personally congratulate Christy on starting life as a pro golfer and somehow finding a second career even more boring than that. That's amazing. We had a stellar talk from Bojan Mandarić, who exhibited, I would say, just incredible taste and judgment by vaulting his 6'8" frame into an audience that consists mostly of computer science nerds and hoping to be crowd surfed to safety. I think that was a really cool decision on his part. I hope he gets home safely. Bojan, by the way, he's a huge proponent of what he terms offline human interactions. And if you'd like to learn more about, what he feels is important about that, you can go online and watch his talk on TED's website in multiple languages. We have translation and everything. Don't tell Bojan. We also heard from Elizabeth Wisner Gross, who sort of relayed a very personal anecdote from her experience as in higher education, as a teacher, as a professor. She gave a really, I would say, impassioned and informed and very coherent argument that we need to reward students in the American education system in a fair and reasonable way and encourage success through our grading system. I'd give her a B+ at best. We heard from David Baeza. David spoke about using drones, autonomous flying robots, to improve our efficiency and the efficacy of our farming systems. And I think David did a really good job. He immediately, right off the bat, addressed everyone's big concern when it comes to drones, which is, of course, privacy. Are these going to invade our privacy? And David got right to the facts. He did what I think a good TED speaker should do. He gave you the information to realize that this is not a threat. This drone is here to help. It's a small, silent, flying robot that has an infrared camera attached to the bottom that can see you at night or under thick foliage. It's basically impossible to hide from, and that's awesome. I think it's also an incredible leap of critical and imaginative thinking on David's part. David sees the coming hunger crisis, the need to produce more food to feed the next 2 billion people and the ones we have here on Earth. We need more efficient farming systems. And then he looked at all of the land that we're using to grow grapes for wine and thought, what about a bunch of robots? What about less grapes, David? What about less wine? This is why they bring me on in the end. We heard from, speaking of produce, by the way, we heard from Kieran Foley. Kieran Foley works at Whole Foods, and I originally thought he was going to be the founder, the CEO, works in the produce department, and I was going to make fun of that. And then I realized I can't afford to shop at Whole Foods, so I think Kieran's got a leg up on me there. I also think it's wonderful. I just think there's some poetic beauty to the fact that a man named Kieran Foley works in the produce section at Whole Foods, because I'm pretty sure Kieran is a vegetable you can only buy in the produce section at Whole Foods. It's very rich in folic acid. I saw someone do one of these. You are correct. That is correct, sir. It's a dumb joke. Finally, we heard from David Rose. David Rose is a long-time experienced high-tech entrepreneur and innovator. He's worked on a whole series of amazing projects and ideas. My personal favorite, though, is the Lego Mindstorms robotics system. He was at the company, leading the company that invented that system and helped popularize it. And that means he is directly responsible for enriching millions of school children's education, and directly responsible for delaying the loss of my virginity by about 2 years, give or take. I want to tell you guys a quick story and then conclude, and you guys can all go home and not think for 48 hours or so. As introduced, I do have a background in inorganic chemistry, and an inorganic chemist is someone who, as a child, watches Captain Planet and grows up wanting to be one of the villains. Basically make toxic waste for a living. But I used to work for the good guys. I used to work for a company that cleaned up toxic spills. This is all true, by the way. What I'm about to tell you is a true story. And I was working there just as an intern. It was very boring. And my boss came over to me one day. He said, Matt, I need you to go downstairs, go to the mailroom, sign for a delivery. I said, cool, this will be boring, very easy. I go down to the mailroom, get to the loading dock. I see a UPS man, and he's standing next to 4 55-gallon blue plastic oil drums, like this big around. And before I can say a word, he says to me, hey, you here for the syrup? Now, in general, guys, yes, I am. All right? Universe is 13.5 billion years old. We're not going to live to see 85. Every single second, 4 people are born, 2 more die. Love is chemically indistinguishable from schizophrenia. God is something we made up so we could go to sleep at night. I'm just here for the syrup. So I explained all that to the UPS man. He said, cool, sign here. They have paperwork for that. He drove off, and he leaves me there with my existential doubt and 220 gallons of maple syrup, which is just too much. I don't know what to do with it at all. I was working in an office. And so I get on the phone, and I call upstairs to my boss, and I ask a question I never thought I'd have to ask in a professional environment. I said, what am I supposed to do with all of this maple syrup? And my boss, I swear to you without missing a beat, said, oh, don't worry about that. We're going to pump that underground. That doesn't clarify anything. Pump it underground. Like, what, is part of a Batman villain's plot to make the city delicious? Like, that's not a thing you do with syrup. And so he explained to me, he said, no, what we do is we're going to take it to a site that's been contaminated in the soil with toxic waste, drill some holes, pump the syrup into the ground, and because it's pure sugar, all the little microbes, the critters, the microorganisms that live in the ground eat it, make more of themselves, huge population bloom, and then all those little critters eat the toxic waste and clean up the site for you. Yeah, wow, I'm hearing some amazed gasps, and you should be amazed. That's an incredible feat of engineering. And it also means that there are living things on our planet that can digest maple syrup and toxic waste equally well. In that moment, you guys, I finally understood the Waffle House business model. And so now I just want to conclude with one very quick idea from a talk we heard yesterday. I hope those of you who were here got a chance to see it. A man named Nick Seaver came up, and he spoke very eloquently about an 18-month silent meditation retreat that he and his wife went on as part of a larger research study on the effects of silence and silent meditation on the human brain. And he spoke about how it changed his life, gave him emotional strength, clarity of thought, really changed his view on everything. And after the end of 48 hours of consecutive just terrible, dumb ideas, I would like to invite myself, the other speakers, you as attendees, anyone watching online, to take Nick Seaver's advice and shut the fuck up. Have a good night, everybody.